Open up the door, it's Dave!
Who?
Dave! D-A-V-E!
Dave?
Right, man, Dave.
Dave's not here!
One of my favorite vehicles and one of the most interesting operating machines that exists in the world today is the Walt Disney World Monorail. It was something that was constructed and conceived by the Walt Disney Company. Walt actually had in mind to put monorails there to be a futuristic sort of device that would be able to transport guests around Disneyland. And when they were conceiving the idea for Walt Disney World, they thought they could use it as one of the primary modes of transportation. If you think about sort of the idea of what he had in mind for Epcot, it was going to be local transportation in a very narrow area, would be on his people mover. That would be the one that runs on electromagnetic motors. And the longer distances would be on a monorail, so you could take more number of people a longer distance. So when they built the Walt Disney World Resort, they actually built the monorail to go around and go through from the Transportation and Ticket Center, which was supposed to be the hub where you would park your car before you would go into the research park and whatever. And you would go off and take the monorail to get to the Magic Kingdom and also to get to the resort hotels that were around the lagoon by the Magic Kingdom. So you would take them to get in that way. So the concept was really clever, and they built two lines, one that was an express monorail that went from this building, the Transportation and Ticket Center, over to the Magic Kingdom, and then a second one that did the local line, local service to each of the resort hotels. So it would stop at every hotel and the Magic Kingdom and the Transportation and Ticket Center. So that was kind of the idea. When Epcot came about 11 years later and they opened it, they decided to add the monorail to it and come from the Transportation and Ticket Center again and go to the Epcot Center, which is just a few miles away, but it was an easy way to get people there because the original objective was to have people park here in one parking lot and then go to Epcot. By the time Epcot was built, it was rethought and they decided that they would add a parking lot to it too, so you didn't have to park here. But even so, they had built the monorail line to take people around. Now, the kind of interesting part is that there's a monorail roundhouse that's in the back, way back behind the Magic Kingdom. And there's actually the train servicing is down there too, so the steam locomotives, they're down there, and also the 12 monorails that service the Walt Disney World Resort are stored back in that roundhouse. And actually, I have a short video of the one of the monorails entering the roundhouse. I think it's actually kind of cool, and I'll share it here. Cool, man. Probably waiting for clearance. Nice, man. Clearance can pick up a little speed. Have to make sure the track is secured in that spot. And that's the idea of how monorails get into the Roundhouse and come out to the Magic Kingdom and out to Epcot. So there's one line that comes out and comes around and comes to a place very near the Magic Kingdom where there's a switch, and they go on the switch there, and they're on they basically join the express line at that point. Then they get switched over to the resort line, and then they come over to the transportation and ticket center. And right up at the end of this area right up here, if you look just past it, there's another switch where you can switch onto from that resort line onto the line that goes to Epcot. So there's actually a couple of switches that work that move the monorails around. So it's kind of a clever thing they did to have the monorail switch. Now the switching itself, this has actually been an interesting topic for conversation over the last little while. About 10 years ago, there was an accident that happened with the monorail system. It was quite unfortunate. There was a policy in place where the actual switching would happen at the Roundhouse. It's far away, so they had no visibility. They only have what's called the Mapo system. It's named after Mary Poppins because Walt Disney made the money from Mary Poppins to build the monorail system. But that's actually the system they use to detect where the monorails are on the line. And the person that's working in the Roundhouse gets a signal that they want to switch a monorail on or off the tracks. And they actually throw the switch there in the Roundhouse, but they have no visibility. They cannot see the monorail when they're working on it. So it's kind of a problem, right? So what they worked out was that they had to have a person who's here at the Transportation and Ticket Center actually go down, stand down on the ground over here, and look up at the switch and make the determination if it's safe to switch to make sure the monorails are in the right physical positions. Now, the perfect confluence of events happened where everything went wrong. There's also a person who works at the station here who has a kill switch on his it's basically, I think he has it on his belt. And he can push a button and actually kill all the electric, because these are all electric monorails, and stop all the monorail traffic. But what happened was on this fateful night, one of the monorails was switching to go back to the Roundhouse and backed into the Transportation and Ticket Center on the Epcot line while there was a train waiting in the Epcot line that had just dropped off passengers. And so the back of the first monorail crushed the front of the second monorail. And it turned out there was a lot of, the perfect storm, right? A lot of things had gone wrong. The person who was supposed to be monitoring it wasn't monitoring it. The person who was supposed to walk downstairs didn't walk downstairs. There was no communication between the drivers, and the person who had the kill switch wasn't aware of what was going on fast enough, couldn't react fast enough before something happened. So it was really kind of a remarkable thing. Of course, after that, you have everybody get involved. OSHA was involved, the NTSB was involved. You had state regulators involved. You had Disney just saying, you know what, maybe it's time that we follow different rules. It used to be that this was a passenger conveyance and it was more of an attraction. It was considered that. Passengers could ride in the front, passengers could do different things, passengers can enjoy the benefits of being on the monorail. What they did as a result of changing the rules was they said, okay, this is no longer that sort of attraction sort of conveyance. Now it's actually a regulated type of conveyance, much like a bus or an airplane, where they have people on there and they have to make sure that they're following all the same rules, that the driver is secure from the rest of the passengers, that there's more of a clearance. They have to have more things that they do to watch to make sure that when they're switching the lines, that it's safe. And a lot of things change. So, you know, some of the fun parts of being able to ride up front in the monorail, they don't exist anymore. But in future videos, I will share with you some videos I made of riding up front in the monorail back in the day before you could do it. It was about 2011 when the accident happened, 2012, something like that. So I made some videos before that, and maybe they're lower quality, but they're still pretty good and they're still pretty entertaining, and you can enjoy them. So I'll put them out on my page later. But I wanted to tell you this story about what happened because as an engineer type, when you start thinking about all the things that can go wrong in the system, for more than 40 years, or around 40 years, never an accident of any consequence. There were a couple of smaller accidents where like the monorail had backed into a tug or had a problem where it got stuck on the line, things like that. There was one fire at some point on board a monorail where they had to actually evacuate passengers onto the roof and come and rescue them with the fire department. But other than that, pretty much it was pretty safe and secure. There was never really an incident. And then along comes this problem, and that's what happens. So I just thought that was really interesting. And from the truly engineering standpoint, this monorail is just so cool. and the things that they're able to do with it and have done with it for 50 years now are just amazing. So it's really cool. I wanted to share with you. Like I said, I'll talk more about monorails in other videos and talk about some of the things that go on, but I wanted to share with you sort of that passion for what this is and the accident that happened, because it just changed everything, and it really is quite sad. There was a casualty, there was a fatality in the accident, and it really is very sad that that happened.
What's your point, David?